Happy Labor Day, Dolphins fans. We're going to do a Labor Day mailbag on today's edition of Miami Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Nick Roloff, and make sure you are following us over on Instagram for daily content surrounding the Fins. If you want more on the Miami Dolphins in between each of our YouTube videos, our Instagram is the best place to find it, at Dolphins Today IG. Goal is 500 followers before we kick off on Sunday in Week 1. We're about 100 away. Hit that follow button, and we might do a Q&A on our Instagram when we get there. All right, let's move over to the legend. Shout out Chad Jones with a question kicking off today's mailbag. Tua said he gets the ball out so quickly and is not worried about the offensive line. Shouldn't he be? That doesn't make sense. I know a lot of us are concerned about the offensive line. Rightfully so. This is the worst group on the Miami Dolphins roster, without a question, in my opinion. And the interior offensive line is where it is going to be the most concerning, with the starting group not being fully cemented, with Aaron Brewer's injury status up in the air. If we have to start Robert Jones left guard, Liam Eichenberg center, Lester Cotton right guard in Week 1, that is not great. Now, Tua is not wrong about what he said in terms of him getting the ball out of his hands so quickly. He has one of the best, quick release times in the NFL in terms of when he catches the snap to getting rid of it, and having wide receivers like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill that get open so easy, and then with Mike McDaniel and his offensive scheme getting people more open, it does tend to help the offensive line as the quarterback gets rid of the ball quickly compared to other guys who just straight drop back, look to throw and survey the field. But he should be concerned. I think we should be concerned as fans. But Tua's never going to go out there and throw his offensive line under the bus, right? That's quarterback 101. The number one thing you don't do as an NFL quarterback is throw shade at your offensive line. So he's not going to come out and say he is concerned. So I don't really buy stock into that answer. But there is some truth to what he said about him getting the ball out of his hands very quickly. Brando coming in with a question. How long can Chris Grier have a job without a playoff win? Have there ever been a GM that lasted 9 years without one? Well, remember, Chris Grier did start his tenure as Dolphins GM in 2016. Dolphins don't have a playoff win in that time, but they've been to the offs 2 or 3 times. And listen, I know it's been a long time for the Dolphins in order to get back to where people want them to be in terms of competing for a Super Bowl and making deep playoff runs. But this is as close as they have ever been, and I think it's going to be on the right trajectory. They've made the playoffs in back-to-back years. I know they've lost them against the Bills and Chiefs, but you got to think those are also the Bills and Chiefs. I also think that this roster that Chris Grier put together for this season is the best roster he's had since he got the team in terms of being the general manager in 2016. If this team ultimately fails, I think it's going to be more indicative on the players, coaching staff, and potential injuries that derailed the season, which maybe you can blame on Chris Grier for putting together a roster that is a little bit older and injury-riddled. But listen, I think Chris Grier did a good job. I know people aren't happy about how the offensive line is and where it is at right now, but he's got the best running back room in football. He's got 2 top 15, 20 wide receivers, one of the best cornerback rooms, one of the best edge departments, linebackers. This roster is really, really good, man. And one issue on the offensive line, although it's an important group, I don't think should make people upset about how he's doing at his job. But let me know, do you disagree? How warm is Chris Grier's seat? If the Dolphins are one and done in the playoffs, where they make it but lose in the first round again, or miss the playoffs altogether, should his seat be warm? Scale it 1 to 10 for me, 10 being hot, 1 being ice cold. He's locked into the Miami Dolphins. Milton Jones, we are in need of more veterans on the offensive line. Who would you consider for this opportunity? Well, no offensive linemen were claimed or signed by Chris Grier after cutdown day on Tuesday of last week, so that was intriguing. Obviously rolling with a group of Austin Jackson, Teron Armstead. The interior offensive lineman isn't great. Actually, Tex, can we flash the offensive line depth chart when you have a chance here? Because the room isn't great, right? And the interior is really a concern. with these three guys. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, only 9 on the roster right now. Maybe someone gets added to this group. I'd like to see them go out and try to get a signing. I said for so long during the offseason, I wanted the Dolphins to sign Greg Van Roten because I believed he would have been your starting right guard from day one. And just imagine how confident we'd feel about this offensive line if Liam Eichenberg was actually behind Aaron Brewer's name and Greg Van Roten was where Liam Eichenberg would be. I wouldn't say it's some top 15 group in the NFL, but it wouldn't be in the bottom tier of the NFL like it is right now. So yes, it's a concern, and I know you're asking who we can go out and get. I took a look at some depth charts around the league. It's not great out there, man. Like, nobody is trading their starting offensive lineman right now before the season. Some backup guys that intrigued me. The only one that really came to mind was Ben Cleveland from the Baltimore Ravens. Every other offensive lineman I was intrigued to trade for is banged up or on IR. So Ben Cleveland from Baltimore is the only really name that I came up with. Del Ryan. Odell needs steroids now. This is funny, but no. I would like to have Odell Beckham Jr. rejoin this Miami Dolphins roster at some point and not take steroids to try to come back sooner and then ultimately get suspended for the entire season because he's on PEDs. But in all seriousness, OBJ is placed on the PUP list with his injury, which means he's missing the first 4 games of the season guaranteed against Jacksonville, Buffalo, Seattle, and Tennessee. I think he will return in Week 5 against New England. I believe that is the best case scenario for him. I believe it will happen with a Week 6 bye. Maybe they hold him out through the bye and bring everyone back against the Colts in Week 7. But the Dolphins are aware. They don't want to push OBJ. I think they're going to let him get fully healthy, come back to this team, and ultimately they're banking on being able to get through the easy part of their schedule with different iterations of formations and personnel, and then when they get into the more difficult part of the schedule in the back half of the year, they'll have a more loaded wide receiver room with Tyreek, OBJ, and Jalen Waddle. All right, before we get into some other questions here, we are sponsored by Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app and platform, and you need to join the 5 million active members playing Prize Picks right now on daily fantasy sports. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports with daily picks. And you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Yes, you heard that correctly. It's so easy to play too. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. You can span it across different sports with basketball, football, baseball, hockey. It does not matter. Play your way. And you are getting a great deal with Prize Picks when you sign up today, by the way. $50 instantly when you play $5. And I have an entry already in for the first week of football. Tyreek Hill and Tua are guys. I'm taking the more than on them. We're lighting up Jacksonville. More than Tyreek Hill, 91.5 receiving yards. More than Tua Tagovailoa, 255.5 passing yards. And I'll also do Joe Burrow less than 252.5 passing yards. Hasn't played football in a while. That risk is a concern. Patriots defense is actually pretty decent. I'll take the less than there. 3-player entry to win 5 times my money. Join me and others on Prize Picks by downloading the app and using code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, William Bonney here with a question. What options/players are available for a legit third wide receiver? Washington is a rookie. Berrios didn't look good in the preseason, and the new guy just a practice wide receiver. How concerned are you with the wide receiver room? Because I don't see OBJ playing too closer to the end of the season. Eze and Craycraft can't stay healthy, plus Waddle will miss a few games for injuries. He does every season. Thank you. Well, thank you, William, for the long and very intricate question. But you are right about the depth being a concern. I will disagree with you with the Odell Beckham Jr. thing. I know you said he's not going to play until closer to the end of the season. I'm willing to put a guarantee on it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and he gets hurt again in practice. It is what it is. But I'm willing to guarantee that Odell Beckham Jr. plays before Week 8. Which means he has to play in the Colts or Patriots game after missing the first 4, early bye in Week 6. I think he plays then, and I think Miami's just going to try to hunk it out until then. Is that the best course of action? I don't know. But in terms of wide receivers being available, nobody's really going to be trading anyone at this point. Free agents, there's Michael Thomas, who actually just got suspended for Week 1 of the season, which means I'm probably not going to want him to be signed by Miami. There's also Hunter Renfrow, Jamal Agnew. There's a couple names out there, at least in terms of when we're filming this question. I don't think they're going to go out and get a third wide receiver. I think they're just going to run a lot of 2 tight end, 2 wide receiver sets, potentially a lot of 2 running backs, maybe Devon Achane split out wide. Same thing with Jalen Wright, and really try to get crafty in terms of their personnel and play calling. All right, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are currently at 58,539, trying to get to 59K before we kick off against Jacksonville on Sunday in Week 1. Hit that sub button because we're going to have you locked in for everything you need to know for Dolphins, Jags, Week 1. Subscribe to the channel. All right, last question coming in today from Ingenuity009. How do you feel about Ricky Williams? Jeez, me. Yeah, he could have been a Hall of Famer. All he had to do was lay off the weed. Shout out Stephen A. Smith. Ricky Williams is my favorite Dolphin of all time. People have asked me that a couple times on our live shows, and I've always answered with him. I was really young when I saw him play in Miami in the early 2000s, or mid-2000s, I should say, late 2000s. Into 2010. He was one of the most dynamic running backs that I have ever seen personally. I had a blast watching him play. Him and Ronnie Brown, the Wildcat offense was just absolutely awesome. Him and Jarvis Landry are probably 2 of my favorite Dolphins of all times. I love Ricky Williams. Obviously not probably going to be a Hall of Famer. It's going to be tough to get into the Hall of Fame, but one of my favorite Dolphins of all times. And I want you to let me know, by the way, who is your favorite Miami Dolphins player of all time? Ricky Williams. Jarvis Landry is a close second with how dominant he was for the Dolphins after being drafted in 2014, 2015. But you let me know, what is your favorite Dolphin of all time? Also, make sure you are following me on Instagram. Like I said, Dolphin Today IG is the handle. We're going to have coverage between every single video we post. So go give us a follow right now.